All right, we're going to get started. Welcome to today's webinar. We're so excited to have you with us, and we're excited about our topic today. We have a panel discussion. I'm really looking forward to what we're going to learn today about how to, I wrestled with how to name the topic, and we settled on how to sell a chatbot internally. And really, the topic is, chatbots are still, for all that is written about them and all the playing around we have with ChatGPT and other chatbots throughout the years, they're still a relatively new technology. And as we all know, bringing in a new technology into our companies as part of our tech stack, part of our solutions, there's a lot to learn in that process. And so we thought we could have a discussion today about what works, what are the dynamics, what are some of the things we need to be thinking about. And so I'm excited for today's discussion. So everyone that has registered for the webinar will get a copy of a link of the recording afterwards. So if you happen to have questions later on, you can always reach out to us and we'll be happy to answer them. So let's get started. I'm going to start by introducing our distinguished panelists and guests, and I'm going to do that in alphabetical order. So I'm going to start by, I'm also needing to multitask, which as I get older, gets harder to do. Here we go. Okay, I'm going to start by introducing Raynell Huskey, and I'm going to smile with all of these because all of these wonderful people I consider friends, and so it's fun to spend some time with my friends today too. So Raynell Huskey is an Emmy-nominated storyteller with 17 years of experience at the Walt Disney Company, professional communication strategist, and DEI practitioner, providing impactful solutions and insights for key people and culture decisions. During her 14-year tenure at ESPN, she ensured the quality control of your favorite highlights and sports segments, most notably for SportsCenter and NBA Countdown. Driven by her passion for diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, and accessibility, she has been afforded the honor of combining her storytelling background, communication insights, and passion for DEI at Disney Entertainment Television. Supporting the creative storytellers and television brands, she works to uplift the voices, people, and culture of her colleagues in the workplace so that everyone feels heard and represented in the programming and content across Disney Entertainment Television. Outside of Disney, you can find her educating young adults on how to navigate their careers, build their professional brands, and providing other tools for success in corporate settings. She's married with two tiny humans and has a master's in communication management from USC, fight on, she says, and currently resides in the San Fernando Valley. Hi, Raynell. Thank you for joining us.
Hi. Lovely to be here.
All right. So then our next panelist, we have to go back and do this multitasking thing here on Zoom. You'd think I'd be faster at this by now, is our esteemed panelist, David Livingston. David Livingston was most recently the executive director for health plan workforce development for a major healthcare organization. His organization comprised 5 teams that supported people strategy, learning and development, support for sales and account management, manager and leadership development for new manager coaching and high potentials, employee recognition, peer-to-peer, excellence awards and recognition events, workforce planning, workforce analytics, strategy and career development, employee engagement programs, onboarding, and College Connect. And prior to his healthcare position, David held the position of general manager, learning and development at Xerox. In this role, he had direct oversight of strategy, curriculum design, enhanced performance improvement, and career development for 6,000 sales professionals. David holds a BS in marketing from the University of Maryland, an MS in information systems from American University, and earned his PhD in education from Capella University. Hi, David. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much. It's great being here.
And next, we have Tom Pizer, who is joining us from a train station, which is great. So Tom is the Senior Director of Learning Technologies for GP Strategies and Learning Solutions Group and has over 30 years of experience in the technical digital media field. He has an extensive background in creative and technical mediums, including digital media specification, production, and testing. During his career, Tom has created, specified, and directed hundreds of hours of educational, instructional, and entertainment-based media, and has served clients in a variety of markets, including the government, trade associations, and commercial organizations. Tom evangelizes learning innovation and speaks at many trade show events such as TechLearn, Realities 360, ATD, and others. Tom is the technical strategist on GP Strategy's innovation team, which is dedicated to exploring new learning methods and mediums, then sharing that knowledge across their ecosystem of 5,000 plus employees and 90 global offices. Recent focus areas for the innovation team include chatbots, AI, AR and VR and MR, gamification, credentialing, and many others. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Vince. Looking forward to today's discussion.
And then last but certainly not least, I'm going to be introducing Joy Rechanek. And I was joking with everybody that I'm spotlighting them on video while I read their bios. And so they have to, awkwardly smile at the camera while I'm reading their bios. And Joy said she was A-okay with that. So Joy is a senior learning experience designer at Dell Technologies, bringing 11 years of experience to her role. Driven by her love of learning, she is on a mission to create elegant, interactive, intuitive, and meaningful learning experiences that inspire your curiosity. At Dell, she creates and oversees professional development programs and learning solutions for team members and leaders. Designing simulation-based training is one of her favorite creative endeavors, and she recently received a Learning Technologies Award for excellence in the design of learning content. In her role, she also consults on accessibility, learning design, training strategies, and L&D research. After obtaining a master's degree in education from the University of Central Florida, she began her career in e-learning, initially as an online science teacher. During her time in this field, she developed teaching and instructional design skills that she still uses today. Her professional journey has taught her the value of human-centered, inclusive design, shaping her approach to work. She views technology as a powerful medium for storytelling and teaching, and constantly experiments with new ways of using it to help others learn. Beyond work, you will find her going down a rabbit hole, researching a new topic, enjoying a documentary, eating overpriced popcorn in the movie theater, or lately learning how to sculpt, a pursuit that usually covers most of her belongings in clay. That's awesome. Thanks, Joy.
Thank you, Vince. Happy to be here.
All right. So, aren't you all excited about today's topic? This is our panelists. This is going to be excellent. So we're going to start with Raynell. I'm going to spotlight you again. Okay, Raynell, I've got some questions for you. You ready?
Ready.
First of all, we're talking about chatbots. Can you describe what chatbot project you're working on?
So within our line of business supporting Disney Entertainment Television, we are doing a chat box that is designed to be a virtual DEI partner to our workforce. It's designed to support our colleagues' DEI journeys by sending them informative moments that matter. So that's like reminders of Lunar New Year, Yom Kippur, some of those other very important holidays that are nationally celebrated. We also offer inclusive action tips for leaders, timely notices on our events from the people and culture standpoint. And we also have an on-demand functionality by using the keyword. So if folks want to know what events are happening this month, they can type in events and it'll be a message and then a link to our events page to showcase the events that are happening around Disney Entertainment Television from a people and culture perspective, and that's namely our BERGs, our business employee resource groups, heritage months, and other holidays that are uber important to our communities within our workforce.
That's great. And so is the audience everybody in Disney? They can interact with this chatbot?
It is for our segment, Disney Entertainment Television. It is a segment within the Walt Disney Company. So it's not the entire enterprise, but our segment, which is about 7K plus, closer to 8,000.
And they will interact with this chatbot using Slack. That's what you use internally.
Yeah, we decided to go with Slack based on some feedback that we have gotten gauging which platform folks are normally on, we've discovered that inboxes can get flooded with multiple newsletters and emails, and it can get lost in the shuffle in Outlook. So we navigated to a platform that everyone is on. They use it daily to communicate with their teams, cross-functionality, and we went with that one as opposed to SMS because in California, the laws are a lot more stringent with sending information on personal devices from a corporate standpoint. So we decided to move away from that and go with a platform that everyone uses. They can use it on their time when they're at work and don't have to worry about getting messages when they are off the clock.
Yeah, that's great. And so I'll just mention to everybody on the webinar that we're going to be focused a lot on the process of how, like in this case, Raynell got everyone on board to put this chatbot in Slack. But if you have questions about the actual chatbot, what does it do? What does it do? Please feel free to ask in the Q&A or the chat, and I'll keep an eye on that. And by the way, if you do use the chat, please set it to everyone so everyone can see your comment and question. So thanks for bearing with me with that. Well, that's really great, Raynell. So let me ask you, this process of getting approval to do this, it's taken a little bit of time, hasn't it?
So not the relationship didn't take. We were immediately on board with the relationship with Mobile Coach. It was how we used Mobile Coach internally that took a little bit of time and approvals. And I think the length of time it took was contingent upon several different internal factors, external factors. The timing wasn't right, and or we had to go through several layers of approval, and that takes time within itself. To say that it took a long time would be an understatement, but that was not a typical, last year wasn't a typical year for our company. So all of those internal and external factors contributed to the delay. But once we were back from holiday and on the right track for launching Coach Deb via Mobile Coach, we wanted to strategically plan the launch. We've done several soft launches with our partners and stakeholders. We're doing a beta launch with a test group of inclusion champions to gauge any hiccups that they may see, the functionality. We want to make sure that it's user-friendly. We don't want to make it complicated. We want to make it as easy as possible for our workforce to access the information and navigate through the chatbot. And due to all of those various factors, it delayed the process amongst lifing. But we wanted to really be strategic so that we can have the best impact, high engagement, and everyone will be just extremely excited to engage in this new project.
So when you are describing Coach Deb, that's the name of the chatbot, your chatbot, to a new stakeholder or to someone else in the organization, whether it's a stakeholder that's representing IT, or you need to get sign off on content or something like that. How can you describe a little bit the process of how you introduce the idea of Coach Deb and a chatbot to someone that's hearing about it for the first time?
Yeah, we introduced it as a virtual DEI partner. A lot of things are moving to the more on-demand platform. AI is becoming a topic of conversation. While this is not AI, we draw similar comparisons to the virtual component of it and seeking out this information at your own time, not being bombarded with emails that clog up your inbox, but being able to engage when the time is appropriate for you. And we also give folks the option to pause and opt out of their notifications. So if it's busy here, so May is a huge heritage month. So it's AAPI, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. It's also Jewish American History Month. So there's a lot of notifications, a lot of activity happening. If it becomes too much, too cumbersome, as far as the notifications go, folks have the option to pause. And we've also were mindful in that in limiting the amount of notifications that we send out per month, because we don't want to become spam. We want folks to look forward to our notifications and rely on this platform as a credible source of information. Like, I know I don't have to worry about it. Coach Deb is going to keep me honest on when Yom Kippur is happening so that we can reschedule meetings so that everyone can attend and take the day off and celebrate how they so choose. Lunar New Year is one that's coming up. It's not a company holiday, but it's a holiday that the company does celebrate. And we want to make sure that folks have awareness so that they can activate, they can support their workforce that celebrates Lunar New Year, and then also give them tips on how to be a good ally in supporting those holidays that they're unfamiliar with.
Yeah, that's great. You know, you bring up a really great issue, I think, that comes, or that sort of is very tied with internal approvals, and that is a sensitivity about pushing push messages, scheduled messages, and finding that balance of, well, is this going to add to the spam or feel annoying? And rightly so. I think stakeholders should be sensitive about how much frequency do we push messages. That said, the ability to push messages and get important messaging in front of people is a really compelling reason for a chatbot, because it's going to be much more effective than something getting buried in email. So I think that's a really great point that you've highlighted. The last question before we move on. Were there any major obstacles in the process of getting started to now? And if so, can you just describe how you overcame them?
Vince, I don't know if we have enough time for that.
Pick
It
one.
was really honestly the compliance component of it, because the Walt Disney Company is a global company. There's so many different layers that we have to go through to ensure the protection of our workforce's information. So we had to make sure that every layer of information being sent, all of the steps that we go through, the how you all protect the information at Mobile Coach. And when I tell you, y'all made my life so much easier by just running off all the information. Where do you keep your participants' information? Send it right in my email. So I didn't have to work hard to prove that the information was protected, because you all were so buttoned up in how you all host your information on your platform. It was more of ensuring, going through those several layers of security and protection, and making sure that we were in compliance with California state law and how the privacy information sharing. That was the most difficult part. Everything else, thanks to Mobile Coach and the team, and I'm not being facetious, it was a breeze. They literally held my hand the whole time in the process of the tech part and setting it up and figuring out what that looks like, working with our internal tech people to integrate Mobile Coach's chatbot functionality within the Slack functionality, all while maintaining the utmost security of the information being shared. It was a breeze for me. I don't know how hard it was for y'all on the back end with our tech and security folks, but that was the part that took the longest and most intense, long 30 email threads. The interaction that we had with Mobile Coach, them helping us set up, learning how far we can push the chatbot, it was an easy sell for our leaders, because they saw the data, they saw the sentiment, they saw that emails were becoming too cumbersome, they saw that folks were navigating to Slack, so the sell was easy. We found a gap and we filled it with the chatbot functionality. We just needed to get past compliance and making sure that we were all buttoned up there, which Mobile Coach were superstars in handling that back end and providing that information to our compliance team.
Thanks, Raynell. I think we could spend a whole webinar talking about actually your chatbot and what it's intended to do, because I think it's good. It's a really important work that you're doing.
Thank
But
you.
we'll move on. If people have questions for Raynell about or Coach Deb, please drop them in the chat, and I'm sure we'll be happy to have answers. And so I'm going to now spotlight David Livingston. David, so great to see you. Thank you for joining us. You've done several chatbot projects, but maybe I can ask you to maybe describe one of them.
Sure.
What did it do, and what problem were you trying to solve with a chatbot?
Excellent, Ben. So my initial foray into chatbots was really to use a chatbot via text messaging as a reinforcement tool to support our new manager development. The chatbot was used to reinforce, to provide performance support, and also accountability to integrate the new manager's knowledge and skills in their new role. It was really key for us to solve a problem that we have, and most of us know that most of the time when a person leaves a course, the lack of ability to retain all that information is high, right? We know that 80% of what we learn is lost within the first 30 days if we don't reinforce it. So we know that reinforcement is critical to the success of any program. So we use this tool to help managers on the job, right, to be able to access information, to hold them accountable to critical knowledge they gain throughout the course, and then to have some fun with them also in terms of updating them about some things that are happening with some of their colleagues along the way. So that's how we use the initial foray into the chatbot was as a reinforcement tool.
So the audience were people that went through a specific training program that you had responsibility for.
Correct.
Yeah. Awesome. Yes. Great. So can you describe the process of getting approval to bring this? I mean, you work for a very large healthcare organization, lots of bureaucracy. So tell us what that process was like.
So the good part of this process was I was the final decision maker in regards to procuring the solution. But as you know, anytime you work for any organization, there's a whole process to actually acquire a new solution. And for us, the biggest opportunity was the technology risk assessment. So that is, as we all know, especially when you work for a large organization, having to go through that process. The great thing is Vince's company has been very astute at this process and worked very closely to ensure that we got through that as quickly as possible. That was one area of opportunity. The other area of opportunity was really selling my direct reports on acclimating a new tool, integrating a new tool into our already busy schedule. So when you think about the biggest opportunity for the use of technology is not the benefit of the technology, but is finding the resources and time on your staff to segment them off to support this new implementation. And we had to think through how we're going to do that, what resources we're going to have, how are we going to get the other work done while we actually apply resources to this project. So it was one of those things that it took a little bit of that internal working. I think the procurement of working through securing the actual tool itself and working through our technology risk assessment office was easy. It was the internal sell in terms of my staff that really took more my my willpower, my power.
That's a really interesting point, because anytime you're bringing in a relatively new technology, in my understanding, this was a pretty new technology when you brought this into your team.
Yes.
There's I mean, yes, we've focused on the topic of this webinar on getting, I guess, a formal approval, but arguably what you're saying is more difficult, and that is people on your team have to learn this technology. They don't know what they don't know. They're already probably very busy. They already probably feel like they've got too much on their plate. And so I can see that. Well, can you remember some of the arguments and the arm twisting and the hand waving you have to do to get people excited about this?
Yeah, the key to that was really demonstrating them the power of the tool and looking at where we were with reinforcement and how we actually went about having those same folks come to a 30, 60, 90-day webinar. But there was nothing in between those webinars that kept people engaged with the content and the resources. And so we realized that there was a gap, and how could we close the gap? And how could we actually have a greater impact on the population, the managers? That process, I was able to sell to my staff that the benefits outweigh because really everyone in my department was all focused on how do we ensure that these managers have the right skills to be successful at coaching? And so this was going to help close that gap. So they came on board once I was able to articulate and demonstrate the power of what the tool was going to do with closing that reinforcement gap. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense, especially since you just reminded us that the content was helping people be better coaching, which is that's a pretty intricate skill to be really masterful at coaching. It's not like I can watch a 60-minute webinar and say, oh, now I'm a master at coaching. It takes practice and iteration. It takes a commitment to be mindfulness about
Yes.
it. And that's where, I can see that I can picture you making that argument now, David. And you actually ended up having several staff members become very fluent in chatbot design.
Yeah, it was really the unique part of this was, I know that we talked about one, but we actually deployed several chatbots, and over time, it became really fun for the folks involved because they really love the impact that these tools are having, and the great support that your company has provided them in regards to the training. Was so easy for them to go about this process that people wanted to be a part of this program because it was something that was engaging, fun for them, as well as the audience that we were supporting.
That's great. Well, as David mentioned at the beginning of his remarks, David was the decision maker. And so that does make getting a decision done much easier when you're the decision maker. So thank you for bringing up the very real issue of getting approval from the people who actually have to do the work. That's a really great dynamic. Again, if you've got questions for David, please put them in the chat or the Q&A. Thank you, David, for sharing your experience. We'll come back as we have other questions, but now I'm going to put a spotlight on Tom. And so Tom, can you briefly describe, I think you've done multiple chatbot projects, but can you describe a little bit about those projects or choose one that you can tell us about?
Yeah, so if you don't mind, we have done a number of chatbot projects with Mobile Coach, and they have all been very successful across a number of different clients. But the one I'd like to talk about today is one that we have been working with you in integrating artificial intelligence, and that is with our customer General Motors. The General Motors and GP Strategies both have innovation teams, innovation as a practice at GM and innovation as a service at GP. We're often with new innovative technologies, we'll have a solution looking for a problem to solve. This was a different case though. GM came to us with a challenge. They have a warranty program, and when you buy your vehicle, you get a warranty with that vehicle. Well, those warranties are managed not by GM employees, but by employees at dealerships. And they have the responsibility of knowing and understanding hundreds of documents of information, thousands of pages of warranty information for, dozens and dozens of cars. And so the challenge that they run into is this information is maintained and managed in centralized repositories, but you've got to be an expert in how to find all of that information. Our question was, how might we integrate artificial intelligence and artificial intelligence smartbot in order to make that process easier, faster, and more accurate? So the audience are those warranty managers at hundreds of dealerships across the nation. And the benefit is, again, faster, more accurate information for their customers. So that's the problem that we were looking to solve. And the way that we solved it is we first worked with you to design an initial chatbot, kind of a pilot smart bot, if you will, in order to prove the technology and see how effective or how efficient that was going to be, so that we could then show and demonstrate that to GM.
Yeah, well, you bring up in this project, you bring up a really important point where this project is utilizing artificial intelligence. And as probably most of us on this webinar who represent or work for large organizations, that's been a tricky topic to navigate the last, year and a half. Was that an issue with General Motors too?
Very much so. So there's two challenges there. One is that they need to ensure that the repository of information references specifically their vehicles, and that's private and proprietary information. They also didn't want to introduce things like hallucinations or information that's injected within incorrect information. So what we needed to do is we needed to ensure that information was targeted, specific, secure, and not open to the large language model accessing incorrect information in the internet as a whole, but also focused on very specific GM specific information. And so that was probably the first thing that we had to prove to GM and that we had to sell to the warranty team. Can
you describe a little bit about how you got approval? Because you're you're as GP Strategies, you're consulting GM, you're consulting this team, so then you have to help them understand, and then they have to go get internal approvals themselves.
Yeah, and that can be a tricky business because how do you do that? Do you just, describe to them what you envision building for them? Very often that's a dead end. It's easy enough to describe it, but then there's a gap between actual development and actual approvals, which will include stakeholders, it will include budgetary, it will include IT. So the way that we elected to do this is GP invested some of our time. You, Vince, and your team invested some of your time because we were exploring some uncharted area here. And we decided to do a proof of concept. Best way to do this was to just find some publicly available information, work with our GM team to get approvals to use that publicly available information, host the smart bot in mobile coaches facility and area, and then rather than describe to them what we were planning on building, we were able to show them what we were planning on building using a mock-up, if you will, of what the eventual program was going to work like. It wasn't the world's smartest smart bot because we were working from a very narrow base of information, but it was enough to show the stakeholders, to show the financial team, and to show the IT team how things were going to work, how secure that information was going to be, and how accurate that information was going to be.
So was that process, not the whole process of actually showing them, building it, showing them, and then getting them to weigh in with concerns or approval or excitement, easier, harder than you thought, about what you thought it would be?
Because we do innovation as a practice at GP, and because the GM team also has an innovation team, I think that collectively we were all comfortable with what the process was going to look like. I think because we do that as a practice, we knew that since there was a lot of hyperbole around the security or the accuracy of artificial intelligence, we were going to need to do a little extra in order to align and get people comfortable with what we were planning on doing. Once we did that, I'd have to say that it was easier than I thought it was going to be. Your team was very helpful. Your team was extremely helpful in getting this smart bot to life. I think that went faster than I anticipated it was going to go. Once we got it in front, I think we started somewhere around September, envisioning this, October of 2023, really getting to identify information. We were able to get this in front of them in the early part of December, and at this point they're just looking to align financial resources in order to implement the full chatbot so that we can get started on implementing the full chatbot. But at this point, it's all gone faster than I thought it was going to go.
Yeah, that's wonderful, and it's really interesting how you've navigated the artificial. When people say artificial intelligence, for a lot of people, it's still a little bit of a black box, and people in compliance and IT and the regulatory position, they're going to be very conservative in how they approach it. But I think you were really smart to actually show them something in action, and that was a really wonderful strategy. Well, thanks for sharing that, Tom.
Sure thing.
Appreciate it. And now we're going to go to Joy. Okay, again, my awkward pause to click the right buttons on my Zoom controls. Hi, Joy. Thanks for waiting. You've
No
been
problem.
very patient. All right, Joy, can you tell us about your chatbot? What does it do? What problems does it solve? And tell us a little bit about who it's intended for.
Yeah, of course. So our chatbot at Dell is called LearnBot, and we use it to reinforce learning. We designed that chatbot to be a friendly learning companion, and it really helps team members build human skills, specifically as part of their work routine. So the chatbot is part of a professional development program at Dell that we designed, and that program focuses on helping team members prepare for the future of work, specifically by developing their human skills like critical thinking and communication. So the program that we designed, when we were developing it, we could foresee a couple of challenges that our design would have. So on the one hand, we recognized that one course would never be enough to help a team member develop proficiency, like it really improve their proficiency in a complex skill like communication. So we knew that we needed to provide a solution to them that would help them practice their skills over time, and something that would also support them by giving them some type of feedback. Another challenge that we had, a problem that we had to overcome, had to do with our audience. So the audience of our chatbot and that program consists of all team members at Dell Technologies. Now they are pressed for time, and they're also located across the world. So we needed a way to support skill development over time, but in a way that would require a small time commitment. And it had to be a solution that could reach at a time that's most convenient for them to learn, no matter where they're at in the world. And we saw a chatbot as a great way to solve those problems. So our chatbot LearnBot will reach out to a team member through Microsoft Teams. It's a tool that we selected because that's across Dell in general. That's what people use to communicate the most. So it was an ideal tool for us to use. We designed the chatbot to be reaching out in short bursts of messages. So the interactions would take 10 minutes or less of a team member's time every week. And what the chatbot does is that it helps you reinforce what you've learned from our training program, but also build upon that. And specifically, it helps you apply your knowledge to complete tasks at work. It also will track your progress, and it'll follow up with you every week to see how you're doing, how you've been using your skills at work.
Oh, Joy, I think we lost your audio a little bit. I am still not able to hear you. I wonder if it's a headset connection, because I was hearing you loud and clear. Okay, no, I can't hear you anymore because Joy, I think you're still. Yep, Joy, we still can't hear you. We were hearing you fine, and then all of a sudden it cut off. So I wonder if your headset got disconnected or something. I'm getting really good at reading lips though, because I saw her say, "How about now?" Can you hear us? All right, we'll let Joy.
Oh, here we go. Can
there
you
we
hear me
go.
now?
Yes.
My
Thank you.
apologies.
That's
My
okay.
headset is my enemy today. It's not the first time that this has happened. Just to review, I don't know where I cut off, but essentially the chatbot provides feedback to a team member depending on what they've been doing with their skills. And it gives us a way to gather insights. So it gives us a really unique window to see what learning preferences are like in our team, within our team members, what their communication trends are, what their career plans are as well.
Yeah, it's a very extensive chatbot. It's like takes a holistic approach to reinforcing and encouraging people that are trying to develop a skill like communication. So really great. So I'm curious, Joy, this idea, was it a novel idea, like to get people to buy into this? Can you describe a little bit about the process to get approval to build this, let alone deploy it?
Well, it was the first time that someone was going to try to use a chatbot in that specific type of way on our team. So we did have to get approval from our leader and our chief learning officer. That was actually it was challenging in one respect, but that was an easier sell than you might expect. So that wasn't a huge obstacle. We did have to know how to tell a story And we did have to align it to the values of our company, the mission of the company, and it had to solve a real problem. So we had to know how to present the problem correctly. We got our leader on board. She really believed in the project, and she advocated for us. So that gave us a lot of credibility when we came to our chief learning officer to pitch the idea. And it resonated with her, and she approved the idea. So after that, we got approval to run a pilot. And the pilot lasted a couple of months. We had positive results from that. And after that, we had approved, we had the green light, let's say it that way, to bring Mobile Coach on as a vendor. And now that part, that took a long time, as you know. We went, well, Mobile Coach had to go through an extensive security review as part of that onboarding process. And after that was completed and Mobile Coach passed that, Mobile Coach is now a vendor at Dell. But I would say that took a long time.
Yeah, it might, I'm curious because, you know, Tom was describing to get approval for their chatbot. They actually proactively created a proof of concept, something that was demonstrative. When you were internally pitching the idea to the chief learning officer and other stakeholders, I don't believe there was a working proof of concept. I think you were just describing the vision and the value proposition. Does that sound right?
So we didn't have a working chatbot, which is why we had to do a pilot as well, but we did have visual demos of it so that they could, so anyone that we were talking to about the chatbot could understand what we were envisioning. So we had mock-ups of it, but really to get final approval to actually launch it Dell-wide, we had to do a pilot to be able to see if it was, you know, even something that attracted attention and that's something that team members would use.
Yeah. Was there anything that surprised you about that whole process? That from the day one until getting formal approval to do this more broadly?
That surprised me. Well, I suppose one of the major obstacles, like I mentioned, was the cybersecurity review, and others have mentioned that as well. So it's a common thing, unfortunately, that Mobile Coach goes through. The complexity of the process surprised me. It was the first time I brought on a chatbot vendor into that environment, and onboarding a vendor is never an easy or quick task, and there's a good reason for that. But onboarding a vendor that deploys chatbots, it added another layer of complexity and legal concerns and security concerns that made the process lengthy. So I wasn't anticipating the volume of paperwork and the duration of the process that we had to go through.
Yeah, that's a great insight. Thank you, Joy. Thanks for sharing your use case and your experience. And so I think all four panelists, it was really interesting for me to sort of relive in some cases the experiences that we've had. Maybe as a final question for all of you, if there are people on this webinar or watching the recording wanting to champion a chatbot in their own organizations, is there some advice you could impart? Since all of you have had some nice experience in navigating this process, what advice would you have for others? I'll just open this up to the group.
I can say that since we were exploring a new area, that is the artificial intelligence side of things, we needed to keep the exploration narrow. We were envisioning all kinds of things that we could do. A chatbot that was pull-based, where I would go out and query information, and it would re-query me in order to ask follow-up questions and that type of thing. We also envision a version of this chatbot that would proactively reach out to the warranty base and provide additional new information to those learners. But we decided that what we were going to do is we were going to make it narrower focus. And I would say that if you're doing something like this for the first time, keeping your focus narrow and purposeful, and looking at what outcomes and goals you're going to be measuring this against is going to be important for success, and it's going to be important for the ability to roll it out. So I would say that.
I would say find a gap and use the chatbot functionality to fulfill that gap. We had had a prior relationship to me joining this team with Mobile Coach. They were used as a supplemental resources for our DEI learnings. And it was such a great experience that we wanted to explore expanding the chatbot functionality and not just have it for a season, but have it as an ongoing opportunity to engage. And I think just based on the experience that our workforce had with the learning opportunities, we decided that it was a easy, functional way to fill a gap of finding resources. Just because our intranet, if you can imagine, is quite busy. There's several layers and layers on layers and pages within our internal website as well, Disney as a whole. Folks were getting lost. So we just wanted to find a central hub of people and culture information, and that was the gap. They just needed to know where to go, how to find the information, how to support, how to be an ally. And this chatbot functionality, Coach Deb, which stands for Diversity, Equity, and Belonging. I forgot to mention that earlier. It fills that gap of needing a central hub of information to one place that everyone uses, and it's easy and user-friendly.
Thank you, Raynell.
Vince, I'd just like to add, mine is not about the acquisition of the tool, but really once you start integrating the tool into your work process, is really having people that are really good writers, and content is king in terms of having engaging messaging, making sure it's really, really pertinent and relevant to the people, the audience. I know these are basic things, but it's so critical because when you grab someone on a small message, it's got to be impactful so for people to take a look and keep coming back to it. The other thing I would say to you is ensure that there is an ongoing feedback loop process to find out what's working well, where people, what tools and technology and resources people really like, so they can get more of those things. And then the last thing is allowing people to have the ability to opt out. There are some people who just don't like this type of engagement, and you got to make sure that you have a way for those people to still get the information, but not maybe through this resource.
And Vince, I would add another thought, if you're someone that's trying to actually sell the idea and get the project off the ground, you have to go pitch it to someone. I would share advice that's been given to me as well by my leader: get to know your audience and really tailor that message. It's a powerful way to pitch that idea and get buy-in. So try to find out what they value, what is going to get their attention, even how familiar are they with chatbots. All of those things will really help you shape that message, and then find common ground with them, build from that. That's a very good way to get someone on your side, start to help them understand what your project is about. So if you can show that your chatbot aligns with their ideas or their goals, that will help the message resonate with them. It'll help them see how a chatbot can fit into the bigger picture as well. And when you're talking to them, try to inspire their imagination. Your pitch should spark ideas for them. So do not ever underestimate the value of a good visual, and really consider that when you're pitching your idea, because you can try to communicate your vision with words, and I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's an uphill battle. Providing a visual aid can really help that process. So really try to deliver a message that's going to resonate with your particular audience, and don't take a long time to do it either. I think a really good exercise is try to do your pitch in 5 minutes. Challenge yourself, see if you can do it do it in a concise but thorough way. So have fun with your pitch, have confidence with it, and take a risk and learn something new. That's how you innovate.
I think this last question about advice has been my favorite part. It's really, really wise advice from everybody. So I'm going to summarize that too for ourselves and share that internally. Well, it doesn't look like we have any additional questions coming in. So thank you so much, Raynell and David and Tom and Joy. Thank you so much for I know you're all so busy, and we appreciate so much your time of joining and sharing your experiences for us. And thank you all for joining the webinar. I appreciate to be a little part of your day today. And I wish everyone a wonderful rest of the day and happy chatbots, everybody. Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thanks, Vince.
Bye.